Well, welcome everybody to this episode of the L&D Ninja podcast. I am your host, Reggie Padin, and I am so glad that you're able to join us for what I promise is going to be a wonderful, entertaining, enlightening session with my dear good friend, Tim Cormier. Now, Tim is just one of the best professionals in the space that I've met. A brilliant guy, brilliant mind, a great leader who has inspired hundreds, if not thousands, of professionals in their fields, and is passionate about making the connection of empathetic leadership and employee performance. And I haven't met anybody as good as Tim Cormier. So Tim, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad you're here.
Wow, Reggie, that's amazing. Thank you so much. And I have to say that the feeling is mutual, and that's literally how I feel about you and the lives you've impacted, both professionally and personally. And I'm really looking forward to talking to you about leadership and all your listeners.
Tim, in all of our conversations, it doesn't matter how light we want to keep it. It always revolves around, and we talk sports and we talk, a lot of the other stuff, but it always comes back to leadership and just really developing maybe that next generation of leaders. And tell us where that passion came from, Tim. Give us a little bit about your background and where that passion for developing people. I know that you have an extensive background in L&D. We're going to put all of that in the bio, but give us a sense of who you are and how you came about that passion for developing people.
Sure. Thank you, Reggie. No, so it's interesting because it's in my DNA. Even if I wanted to do something different, this is who I am. I just really care about people. I really want to make sure that we're giving them the tools or resources to help make good decisions in their lives and be able to drive forward. I've always done that. It's interesting. When I graduated from college, I was working in the Catholic school system in Hawaii, and I was an elementary school teacher for third and fourth grade, and I was also the volleyball, basketball, and track and field coach for both the boys and girls teams. And it just was there, as I was coaching, I was working with all the kids. And then I moved into the corporate world, where I moved into working in manufacturing. And it's interesting, Reggie, because I was literally putting parts in the machine and taking parts out. And that's what I was doing. But I was coaching other employees and putting together job aids, putting together different techniques on how to have process improvement. It just naturally, organically came out. And from there, I moved into being an adjunct instructor for the corporate training. And I moved into doing basic employee development, things like time management, things about how to run effective meetings. And then that went into leadership development, how to do goal setting, how to do performance management itself, and how to lead your employees. And that's where I've continued to grow, going into change management, going into things like design thinking, lean startup, and agile. And I'm an ongoing learner. I mean, I am like a sponge. I'm always, when I hear something, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to learn that. And here's the thing is, I realize the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know anything.
Yeah. Well, that's how I feel when I meet with you. Because I always learn something new from you. So that I definitely can attest to your lifelong passion for learning. So it was sort of your introduction into the space was sort of by accident, was it?
In the corporate world, it really was. Yes, I was, as I said, I wasn't sure what I was going to do after being an elementary school teacher. I thought, well, let me see how corporate America goes.
Yeah.
And, going in there, I'm just, I was a laborer, I guess is a way to look at it, working in the assembly department. And, just as I said, it just was, how do I help others grow? How do I learn? How do I create a career path? It just literally stumbled into it.
You were involved with ATD.
Mhm.
what used to be ASTD, correct?
Yes, it used to be the
Yeah,
American Society for Training and Development. Now they're the Association for Training and Development because they've gone global.
right,
And so it really isn't just about America.
right. So let me ask you this: in your time there, you were able to interact with a lot of
Sure.
L&D professionals. Do you find, because it's been my experience so far, that a lot of the people that I interact with in this space sort of came to the profession almost by accident, right? I mean, they were doing something else, and oh, wait a minute, there's this field, and I kind of dig it, right? and so, do you what were some of your findings there as you were interacting with other L&D professionals?
Yeah, that's a really interesting observation, Reggie, because sometimes people stumble into learning and development, and they don't know where to put them. A lot of times you'll have somebody who is a subject matter expert as a technician, as an accountant, in the HR field, whatever it may be. They're a subject matter expert, and they say, "Hey, you do this so well. Why don't you teach others how to do it?" You have that. You have other people who come at it from an organizational development perspective, where they're saying, "What does the enterprise architecture look like? What are the knowledge, skills, and abilities that we need to have? How do we identify the skill gaps and so forth?" But whomever comes to ATD, it's all about saying, how do I get my skills to the next level? You hit that point in your career, and when you're facilitating and training, and you're saying, can I do something different?
Yeah.
How do I engage my learners? Are there different ways to doing it? And ATD is an amazing program for that, because it's really giving you your skills about doing instructional design, how to facilitate, how to follow up, how to make sure you have an ROI for your learning and development. And so I can't say enough about the ATD. It's
Yeah.
top
Yeah.
notch, world class.
Listen, when I came into this industry, it was I started looking, okay, what do I do? What do I do now? And where do I get my sort of my sense of orientation, right? And it was at the local chapter of ATD down here in South Florida, and I mean, it was just an amazing experience for me. And I guess we're doing a free plug here for ATD. But I mean, I met some incredible professionals there. And in fact, my introduction to the whole, really what opened the door for me to really go into LMS, well, number one, LMS administration, and then LMS, which led then to LMS and LXP design, came out of my meetings at the local chapter of
Oh, that's
ATD.
fascinating.
Yeah, and it was up in Sunrise where you were last night. Uh, and
Cool.
so I again I think that times have changed a little bit. I think that there's a lot more programs now and more certifications and more education, and there's more available to people. But it's always good to bring people who have gone through sort of the ringer and have been around the block a few times to talk to the new professionals, maybe people who are just starting out in the field. Tim, I consider myself an L&D ninja, not because I'm anything special, but I sort of had to cut my teeth doing everything in L&D, right? I mean, so there was I had no team, right? I had no team. So if there was a class that needed to be put together, I did that, right? If somebody had to design a curriculum for sales or store management or leadership training, I had to sort of do the research and put it together myself. Same thing with e-learning. Do you feel yourself in the same kind of situation where you had to sort of do everything because there was no team?
Yeah. So yeah. So you're exactly right. That is one of the key things about when you're working for one of the smaller organizations like we have, where you are the one learning and development professional. That is, it's a blessing and a curse that you do everything from needs assessment, instructional design, facilitate the workshop, new hire orientation, employee development, leadership development, executive development, follow up,
Yeah,
the budget, run the reporting.
yeah,
So, and we could go on and on.
yeah,
It's a blessing and a curse, but it really is wonderful because you get to see the full scope
yeah,
of learning and development and how does it all go together.
I totally agree. I was going to ask you, what do you define a small organization? Because my first sort of experience was in an organization with 2,000 employees and 370 locations, and then it was in retail. And then during high season for us, we hired an additional 2,000 employees, so it was 4,000 employees. Plus the corporate side, so it wasn't a small, it wasn't a small organization. So, what do you define as small organization?
And
And
you only had one learning and development professional
right here,
for that amount of people. Wow, Reggie,
yeah, it
that's
was.
impressive.
So when I tell you that I had to, really, I was either gonna crash and burn or I was gonna really learn it, right? And I think thankfully I stuck with it. But yeah, I mean it wasn't a small. And then my second stint was in telecommunications, and that one was close to 1,000 employees. So it wasn't a small. Now the last couple of ones, they've been smaller professional services, and it's funny because for in my experience with the professional services companies that I worked for, I actually had teams where I was able to build teams. So I became very spoiled very soon.
Oh, that's great. No, and it's important to be able to build that team where you have somebody who has that expertise. So let me kind of unpack what you're saying in a couple different ways here. How would I define a small organization? I would say probably anyone under 1,000 employees is probably considered small, and then you get micro, small, and so forth.
Sure.
But for if you only have one learning and development professional, I would say that would consider a small organization.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's fair.
But but here's the thing: is that I aspire to be a chief learning officer. That is my career ambition. That's how I look at myself. That's how I want people to see me, and I want them to give me feedback
Yeah.
on that. If I'm not behaving like a chief learning officer, if I don't have the skill sets or being strategic, I want people to give me that feedback.
Yeah.
Okay, that is that's how I see myself. Now, having said that, even if I become the chief learning officer, I still at some point will see myself doing instructional design.
Yeah.
I still want to make sure that I'm facilitating a workshop. There's nothing like getting in front of people and saying, this is how we're going to be doing our coaching model.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're modifying our coaching model. You do your research with the leaders, and then you go out there and you're in front of an audience and you're saying, this is the model that we're going to do. This is
Yeah.
our new collaborative approach for doing coaching. Because there's nothing like getting that instant feedback when all of a sudden, you do all this research, you think it's wonderful, and people are looking at you like, what are you
Right.
talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
want me to do what? How am I
Yeah.
supposed to do that? And that I think is so key, is that every leader, doesn't matter where you are, you still have to be able to get that instant feedback and get out there and get in front of the audience and your learners.
Yeah. No, and I think it brings credibility to your leadership, right? That you're a practitioner. I mean, I think there's something to always being a practitioner. I'm of the same philosophy as you. I think I may not be the best instructional designer, but I understand it and I can do it. I can do it. I may not be the best trainer, but I can train. I may not be the best writer, but I can write. And so I think that as you're leading a team, you want to have sort of that knowledge, that working knowledge of all these different. I mean, listen, what we do is great because I mean, you can't get bored. If you get bored, you're in the wrong field, right? Because you're doing so many things. I mean, you may be meeting with executive management one day, and then meeting with new hires the next day, or from 1 hour to the next, right? I mean, so we cover the entire spectrum.
We really do. And that, again, that's a blessing and curse of our career. But that's, again, there is literally no 2 days that are the same. And you really have to be on at all times to be
Yeah,
able to have that empathetic listening ear to see, what do these learners need? What are their opportunities? What are their strengths? Where are
yeah,
their challenges? And it's interesting too, because, leaders are so needed. Getting back to your original question, when you're talking about leaders right up front, that's what we need right now.
yeah,
When you look at our society from political, social, economic, whatever spectrum you want to look at it. We need people who are going to have that emotional intelligence and go out there and listen to others, understand what and who are their triggers, and be able to engage in that dialogue.
Yeah.
Because whether we're looking at actors, we're looking at politicians, sports athletes, we see people all the time losing it and doing things that are completely out of their character.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they don't know what who and what are their triggers.
Yeah.
And it's interesting when you think about this, that hurt people will hurt people.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so when you see somebody lashing out, and when you see a leader who is yelling at one of their direct reports, or they're being condescending or whatever it may be, that they're hurting somewhere. Yeah. And if you're able to have that empathy, I'm not saying that's okay, and I'm not saying that's good. I'm just saying you're able to understand more, and you're able to get to that emotional connection with them, and that they can own it and be accountable for their behavior.
Yeah. I think in what I've experienced as well, Tim, and I completely agree with you. We all bring we can't separate who we are and our background and what we've gone through and our experiences. And so that, the emotional intelligence is all about keeping our emotions sort of in check, and understand and acknowledge that they're there, right? And understand what our triggers are, so we know when to back off and when to, but, I also think, and this is where, going back to the, doing, or having the exposure or experience of doing everything within our area of responsibility. Because what I have found is leaders who are not very sure of themselves, right? They may be, they may not be as skilled in one particular area, but they want to come across as they know everything, and it's okay not to know everything. One of the things that I've always pride myself in hiring is, I want to, in my team, I want to have an instructional designer that is 110 times better than me, right? And I'm going to give that person. I tell my teams, I said, you are the boss of your area of responsibility. Okay, I'm here to remove obstacles and give you the tools and listen to you, and sort of, we can work together. But you are, listen, sometimes as a boss, the buck stops with you, but I don't use that a lot. I give my teams the freedom, right? Okay, you tell me when I'm wrong. You tell me, why that makes sense, and I'm going to listen to you, right? And so some leaders, they feel like they have to know everything, and they have to have the last word, and they have to have the answers to everything, and I think that's what gets them into trouble, right? I mean, they themselves don't grow, and then the people around them cannot grow either. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. I think you hit on some really key points there, Reggie. And that's one of the things that I really admire about you, is that I think you have that entrepreneurial mindset, and you run learning and development like a business. And the best learning and development professionals are the one who see this as a business. We have a budget, we have customers, we have to make sure that we keep our customers happy. What can we do to make sure we have our customers coming back? And it's really about getting that engagement, that there's a whole ecosystem here, and you can't be an expert in everything. And, we want to make sure we walk the walk and talk the talk, that, we tell leaders, hire people who are bright, intelligent, and articulate, and even smarter than you are.
Absolutely.
So we need to make sure that we do that ourselves. And it really, what is the expression? High waters rise all boats.
That's right.
And it's that whole thing. It elevates all of our games. And absolutely, I want to have somebody
and the other one is
better than I am.
Iron sharpens iron, right? I mean, iron sharpens iron. We're all in this together, and we can all make each other better. Which, at the end of the day, it's going to be better for the organization, right? I mean, if we're all doing, great work together, it always helps at the end, helps our customer, and our customer tends to be, the business that we're trying to help, align with their goals and what they're trying to achieve through people, right? I mean, at the end of the day, they achieve. Yes, technology is part of it. The product, of course, is part of it. But at the end of the day, if the people are not on board, unless we get to the point where artificial intelligence has taken over everything, and we're sort of we're sort of just sitting there watching until that day comes, you're the success of the organization at the end of the day lies with its people.
It truly is. I wholeheartedly believe that every organization, its most important and valued asset are its people.
Yeah, yeah. So that brings me to a couple of the things that you and I have talked about in the last couple of months here, and that is in the whole area of a post-pandemic. What is a post-pandemic workplace, and probably more importantly, what is a post-pandemic leadership influence or style is needed to help our organizations deal with this new normal, right? I mean, listen, even large corporations, like the Googles of this world and Apple, and they sort of began the whole conversation of, well, we want people to feel like that they have the freedom to choose. We see some of them that have kept that same mentality, and others who are very strongly, wanting to force people. And as learning and development professionals, we may be working in environments where the organization is pretty loose about people coming back to the office, right? But we may be also in organizations where management really wants people to come back, right? And so our jobs is to sort of guide management in that process, right? And so I'm gonna, maybe you can share a couple of words as to what we can do to help the management side, but also how do we help the employee side adjust to whatever the new reality is for their organization.
Yeah, so there's a lot there. So when it comes right down to it, we need to make sure that leadership is hearing the voice of the employees, and what do they want, and how do we keep them engaged. And then at the end of the day, also the leaders have to be saying, what do our customers want, our external customers? What's best for our customers? And it's about putting that blend together. What's best for the employee, for the customer, for the organization? How do we put these three together? And by the way, there is no easy answer for this.
There isn't.
There really isn't. And we're still coming through it. And it's about being able to test and prototype and try things and have those after action reviews and learn what worked, what didn't work. Why did this work? What can we do more of? Why didn't it work? What can we try differently? And so really having that mindset that we're not going to get this perfect. And what might work really well in one culture may not work for another culture. A couple things, though, that it's being very deliberate. People have realized that their time is extremely valuable, that they want to be with their families. They realize, hey, I can get my work done. It doesn't matter if you're a IT programmer, if you're an accounting analyst, whatever it may be, someone in marketing, it doesn't matter what your role is. We can do this from home. Yeah. We've shown that.
Yeah.
Now, if you really want to get to that next level of collaboration and creativity and innovation and getting that ideation of ideas together, that's where you want to be deliberate when you bring people together and say, if we're going to bring people together, this is why we're going to be together and this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Now, it is tough to say, okay, Reggie, I want you to be creative right now.
Yeah.
Actually, hold on, let me put this. And that's the tough part.
Yeah.
Scheduling innovation, that's not really how our brains are wired.
No.
So we have to think things differently too.
Yeah.